Hello. A good afternoon or morning in my case. um, there's not much to say here. I'm glad that we're progressing through the weeks. I'm glad that this has been a really good habit forming situation so far. I've just been really driven to just get up here, do it every day, and then we'll hammer out details further on. Thank you to everyone who is joining me through the chaos. Okay. Um, Today we start our new book. It's the book of Exodus. We are going to be in chapters 1 and 3, and then we're going to go into Psalms 17 because it's our 17th day. The devotional video that is linked to this has a bit of overview or a bit of recap for what happens to Abraham's family in the book of Genesis, right? I want to say I'm gonna make a devotion, a recap video, but I'm gonna try not to throw too much of myself onto myself all at once, okay? But I do want to attempt to try to put some sort of devotional video out there where I just recap what happened throughout books after we close them out, just so that you can get a quick snippet, and then we can go into the next chapter. There's always something to kind of refresh what we went through. Yeah, I'm excited for today. Let's go. Let's see what happens in Exodus. I guess the first thing we should know, and this was detailed in the video, is that the book of Exodus picks up 400 years later. So there's about 400 years of humanness that is missed and not detailed in this. Alright, Exodus 1 through 18, that's what the video is going to cover if you go watch the video. It's the first part of Exodus that recounts how Abraham's family ends up enslaved in Egypt. God raises up a deliverer to confront the evil of Pharaoh and to liberate the Israelites. We know that's Moses. From Egypt, they set out into the wilderness on the way to Mount Sinai. So, we are pretty aware that Moses comes in. This essentially, for me, caps the story of, covers the story. The Prince of Egypt is what all of this is pretty much going to talk about. So let's hop in this. The Israelites in Egypt. These are the names of the sons of Israel, that is Jacob, who moved to Egypt with their father, each with his family. Yeah, that cold I was worried about yesterday is a real thing now. So, we're gonna try to get this all together. Minimal sneezes and coughs. But I was not gonna miss a day. Okay, that's not what is gonna happen. What is my hair sanitizer? Okay, we're gonna hop in. Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. In all, Jacob had 70 descendants in Egypt, including Joseph, who was already there. In time, Joseph and all his brothers died, ending that entire generation. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. In fact, they multiplied so greatly they became extremely powerful and filled the land. Eventually, a new king came to power who knew nothing about Joseph or what he had done. So, I think this is extremely important to know that this king who comes into power and knows nothing about how Joseph saved and rescued the land of Egypt and all of the work that he had put forth into that country, which is why him and his family, the Israelites, earned so much favor there in that territory. It's important to know that he knew nothing, but I don't. It's different. He knew something. Like Joseph had cemented his moment in history, in the history books, in the oral history. I'm sure there was a telling of Joseph throughout the royal lineage of pharaohs, right? But that word, he knew nothing, for me, whenever I've run across this before, whenever I've like really I was like, what do you mean he knows nothing? Like nobody told him. They told him. He did not. My theory now is that he was told, but he didn't accept. He didn't. Just because you're told something doesn't mean you know something. So, he didn't know the impact Joseph had in that place. He didn't know the impact Joseph and the Israelites had in terms of God's people and God's favor, but God's power being behind them. He didn't know those things, but he is about to find out. He said to his people, "Look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are. We must make a plan to keep them from growing even more. If we don't, and if war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will escape from the country." So here he's just wrapped up in the fear of what the power of the Israelites, just in sheer number alone, can do for them. Can do to them should they join their enemies. I would assume that they had enemies that they were already watching out for. They had people who were kind of on the edge of war with, who they were on the edge of war with. Otherwise, this tactic of fear that he's showing towards his people wouldn't really resonate if they were at peace, if they weren't already on the edge of war. So the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. They appointed brutal slave drivers over them, hoping to wear them down with crushing labor. I like how the Bible details the subjugation of a people in one sentence. Like, so the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. Okay, you're not gonna break that down for me? How? How do you go about capturing all of these Israelites who outnumber you, first of all, and then turning them into your slaves? Then they, tried to wear them out with labor. They forced them to build the cities of Pithom and Ramesses as supply centers for the king. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more the Israelites multiplied and spread, and the more alarmed the Egyptians became. Okay. So even under this oppression, even under this brutal labor and workforce, you guys are still fruitful and multiplying because it is the command of God that they are following. Be fruitful and multiply. His blessing is still upon them. So no matter what the human Pharaoh, what him and his Egyptians are doing to these Israelite people, they are not going to stop the blessing God gave them to be fruitful and multiply. That is in God's will house and God's will house alone. So yeah, be alarmed because you can try to stop their shine, but they're still blessed. Okay? So the Egyptians worked the people of Israel without mercy. They made their lives bitter, forcing them to mix mortar and make bricks and do all the work in the fields. They were ruthless in all their demands. Then Pharaoh, basically, I think that screams to me, you got all this energy, I'm aware. Like, you still got all this energy to multiply and to be fruitful. That I'm gonna wear you out before you can even think about hopping into your marriage bed and doing what you need to do to multiply. You know what? I'm gonna wear you out before you can sleep with your partner. Like, I'm gonna wear that energy out of you. So they were merciless because ultimately what they were trying to do is not just have Israelite slaves, but to decrease the population of Israel. Decrease and contain. Then Pharaoh. Ooh, okay, wait, but all of this time, I have to imagine what kind of propaganda is being released to the Egyptian people to believe that the Israelites, to make them believe the Israelites are deserving of this. Every time there's a group of people who feel like they have authority to subjugate another group of people, there's always some sort of propaganda going on. There's always some sort of making them less than, making that oppressed group or soon to be oppressed group of people seem less human than what actuality is. So you guys are so strong, you guys can still multiply in these conditions. I'm gonna make you do more of this, do more of that, mix this, get that over there, build that brick, like laying plan after plan on top of them to just kind of try to slow them down and diminish their strength in numbers and physically. The Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives. Siphrah and Paul. When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. So imagine, okay, first, I remember back when there was a detailing of Joseph having a banquet with his brothers, and the detailing essentially, this was in Genesis, it essentially detailed how Egyptians despise Hebrew men, despise Hebrews, so much so that they wouldn't even eat with them. So there was already some level of prejudice there. I don't know if that continued to exist or how deeply that continued to exist for this 400 year missing history gap. For this 400-year history. Clearly there was already something rooted there or seeded there in order for it to grow into the subjugation of the Israelites. So there's already something there that Pharaoh of this generation can poke at and can nag at in order to enslave all of these people. Then, to think you're so high and mighty, to think you're the top dog of this situation. Give your orders, and then have your orders be ignored. Because even though I may fear you, I am a God-fearer more than I could ever fear you, Pharaoh. So these Egyptian midwife women, these two of them was like, I heard what you want, but I know what God wants. And I know what power you have and what kind of hell you can make my life, because you've shown that in your quality of character. However, God's first fight. Like, you know, like it's just very impressive. It's an impressive faith. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives. Why have you done this? He demanded. Why have you allowed the boys to live? The Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women, the midwives replied. They are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly that we cannot get there in time. So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. Imagine trying to weaken a people, doing everything you can to weaken somebody, and they are just growing more powerful right before your eyes. That is something. And everything, every plan you think to hash, every servant of your plan you try to enlist is like, nah. Nah, we're not doing that to them because God is with them. I'm not doing your bidding. Oh, so you know this is a lie. The Hebrew women, the midwives replied, they are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly that we can't even get there in time to birth them for you, even though that's my job. And then, you know, like, kill them. But anyway, God was good to the midwives. God was good to the midwives. That's how you know that the midwives operated in God's will. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may let the girls live. So again, Pharaoh's trying to follow through on his plan to kill the first boy and the boys of the family. And because he's giving this order not just to two people, but to the entirety of his Egyptian people, all of his people, there are definitely going to be some people who follow through on that, and some people who don't, like, who try to resist, but what's funny, I'm starting to notice a theme of God rewarding people with families, rewarding people with children, rewarding people with, I guess, that unit. Yeah, because here it says, and because midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. But like, I guess I wouldn't really know like how rewarding a family is, or how rewarding it is to have people to go through in that day and age, just to have people around you who are your family. Because family is also a strength of don't know where I was going with that. The birth of Moses. About this time, a man and a woman from the tribe of Levi got married. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw that he was a special boy and kept him hidden for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of parabis reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. She put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds, along the bank of the Nile River. The baby's sister then stood at a distance, watching to see what would happen to him. Soon, Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the riverbank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to go get it for her. When the princess opened it, she saw the baby. The boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. Then the baby's sister approached the princess. "Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked. "Yes, do," the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. "Take this baby and nurse him for me," the princess told the baby's mother. "I will pay you for your help." So the woman took the baby home and nursed him. Later, when the boy was older, his mother brought him back to the Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. The princess named him Moses, for she explained, "I lifted him out of the water." Moses sounds like a Hebrew term which means to lift out. Again, very poignant because he lifts out people. He lifts the Israelites out of slavery. So like even Pharaoh's daughter here to know that it was one of the Hebrews' kids, in a sense, shows disobedience to the Pharaoh's orders to kill the Hebrew boys. So much to the point that she ends up adopting him into her family, her royal family. So here we can call this like coincidence if we want, but God orchestrating the Moses being born to a mother who had the strength of character to do everything she could to hide her baby away and protect her baby, and strength of character enough to notice that her baby had a calling on him, that he was special in some way. It doesn't really detail how she knew that, but you don't just birth a baby and go, "This one's special." Like, maybe you do. I don't know. I've never birthed a baby, but I think Moses was born to a woman who's capable of fighting for his life before he could even open his eyes, really. And then she ensured his life the best she could by letting him free in the river to float safely along it. But then, at the same time that this baby's being floated down the river, this princess needs to go bathe in the river, and she has enough kindness and mercy to allow this boy to live, knowing full well there's a life sentence put on him, a death sentence put on him, and then she gives him the proper person who can nurse him until he's of age. That she then adopts him. But all of this places Moses specifically right next to the person who's oppressing his people. Right next to the person, or maybe not right next, but very close to. He places him in a very unique situation. Moses escapes to Midian. Many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw two Hebrew men fighting. "Why are you beating up your friend?" Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, "Who appointed you to be our prince and judge?" "Are you going to kill me as you killed that Egyptian yesterday?" So look, bruh, like even when you think you're doing your business undercover, you're like trying to make sure no one's watching, you're trying to do this silently and stealthily. Even when you think you're handling your business, no one sees you, someone's watching and someone's judging. Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Everyone knows what I did." And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what happened and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. When Moses arrived in Midian, he sat down beside a well. Now the priest of Midian had several daughters who came as usual to draw water and fill the water troughs for their father's flock. But some other shepherds came and chased them away. So Moses jumped up and rescued the girls from the shepherds. Then he drew water for their flocks. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked, "Why are you back so soon today?" "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds," they answered, "and then he drew water for us and watered our flocks." "Then where is he?" their father asked. "Why did you leave him there? Invite him to come and eat with us." Moses accepted the invitation and he settled there with him. In time, Reuel gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. Later, she gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom. For he explained, "I have been a foreigner in a foreign land." Gershom sounds like the Hebrew term that means a foreigner there. Okay. Years passed and the king of Egypt died. But the Israelites continued to groan under the burden of slavery. So the king of Egypt, this was the one who enslaved them. He passes away, and so a new king takes his place. But slavery continues. They cried out for help, and their cry rose up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He looked down on the people of Israel and knew it was time to act. The Simpsons right there. He looked down and knew it's time for me to do something. Oh man, like, oh, it's time for God to act. Wow. Okay. So Moses and the burning bush. One day, Moses was tending to the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, and Jethro. Oh, Moses' father-in-law went by two names, Jethro and Reuel, the priest of Midian. He led the flock far from the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of the bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. "This is amazing," Moses said to himself. "Why isn't that bush burning up? I must go see it." When the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush, "Moses, Moses." Okay. So first, an angel of the Lord appears and sets fire to this bush. And then when Moses is so enthralled by the spectacle of this fire burning, but the bush not being on, this bush being on fire but not being burnt by fire, he draws near. So this angel gets his attention, and when the attention is drawn, God picks up the mic and tells Moses, "Yo, Moses. "Here I am," Moses replies. "Do not come any closer," the Lord warned. "Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground." Don't bring your shoes over here. Get your shoes off my carpet. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then when Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. This is reminiscent to that fear that Adam was showing in the garden. Everyone's so afraid to look at God. Then the Lord told him, "I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. Look, they cry to the people of Israel has reached me. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abuse them. Now go, for I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt." But Moses protested to God, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" God answered, "I will be with you, and this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain." But Moses protested, "If I go to the people of Israel and tell them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' they will ask, 'What is his name?' Then what should I tell them?" God replied to Moses, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent you.'" God also says to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations." My eternal name. This is my eternal name. My name to remember for all generations. How many names do you remember God by? Because I know I've been. I mean, God is God. I call him God first of all, first and foremost. But then there are times when it's just like, oh man, like when the situation is specific to a certain kind of God, you need. Like when your mom calls you by your full name, you know it's different than when your mom calls you by just your like everyday name. You straighten up, right? Like you're expecting a little bit more out of the situation. So like sometimes I gotta change, I gotta switch up on the name of God that I'm calling out to because I'm expecting a little more out of the situation. And the God says to him, tell the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob sent you. Remember that this is my eternal name. I will always be called by these things. For as long as I exist throughout eternity, remember this name. That's the name you call when you want consistency. That's the name you call, man. Like, throughout the generations. Okay. Now go and call together all the elders of Israel. Tell them Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely, and I see how the Egyptians are treating you. I have promised to rescue you from your oppression in Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. The elders of Israel will accept your message. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt and tell him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So please let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer our sacrifices to the Lord our God. Could you imagine like rolling up to your slave master and going, so the Lord our God, like he came to us and gave us a message and he needs you to let us go take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer us sacrifices. Like I'm gonna need you to back off on the slave mastering for a little while so I can go give my sacrifice. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him. So I will raise my hand and strike the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them. Then at last he will let you go, and I will cause the Egyptians to look favorably on you. They will give you gifts when you go so that you will not leave empty-handed. Every Israelite woman will ask for articles of silver and gold and fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from the Egyptian women in their houses. You will dress your sons and your daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. They haven't been using their wealth well anyway, so might as well. And remember that the Egyptians are wealthy. Like they racked up during that 14-year plague, prosperity plague situation, right? So they racked up gold from their neighboring countries. They racked up silver. They wrapped up cattle. All of they have riches stored in that land. So to say this, I will use the Egyptian people to strip. You will dress your sons and daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. The wealth placed on the Egyptians be will be given to the Israelites that they've enslaved for so long. It's like, your time has come. You have done wrong to my people for too long. You enraged God enough that he had to act. It was time for him to come forth and act. And it's not like God's quick to anger. So, goodbye wealth. Goodbye prosperity. A prayer of David. So this is Psalm 17. O Lord, hear my plea for justice. Listen to my cry for help. Pay attention to my prayer, for it comes from honest lips. Declare me innocent, for you see those who do right. You have tested my thoughts and examined my heart in the night. You have scrutinized me and found nothing wrong. I am determined not to sin in what I say. I have followed your commands, which keep me from following cruel and evil people. My steps have stayed on your path. I have not wavered from following you. I am praying to you because I know you will answer, O God. Bend down and listen as I pray. Show me your unfailing love in wonderful ways. By your mighty power, you rescue those who seek refuge from their enemies. Guard me as you would guard your own eyes. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Protect me from wicked people who attack me, from murderous enemies who surround me. They are without pity. Listen to their boasting. They track me down and surround me, watching for the chance to throw me to the ground. They are like hungry lions, eager to tear me apart, like young lions hiding in ambush. Arise, O Lord. Stand against them and bring them down to their knees. Rescue me from their wicked with your sword. By the power of your hand, O Lord, destroy those who look to this world for their reward, but satisfy the hunger of your treasured ones. May their children have plenty, leaving an inheritance for their descendants. Because I am righteous, I will see you. When I wake, I will see you face to face and be satisfied. I say time and time again, David is going through. And I just want to know. Man. Great. That is all of everything today. Let my people go. Wow. So from the protection of Moses to getting Moses to the Mount Sinai to be able to deliver his command onto Moses, God sets forth this plan to rescue his people. Not only to rescue his people, but to make his people, to set his people free in a way that they have provisions. moving forward, aka the Egyptians' wealth. Look, you won't have to worry. When you are free, your sons and your daughters will be wearing all of the gifts that the Egyptians bestow upon you because they will find favor on you. Imagine switching the situation around so well that you go from being slave to these people to these people giving you favor and blessing you with everything that they can. I myself don't know how to handle the favor of another person. Like when someone's trying to do good for me, I'm like, why you doing that? Like, what's your motives here? Like, I don't understand. And I get so but like the favor of a person is also just another way of God moving blessings to you, you know? So I need to like really embrace other people's favor without necessarily trying to find or going straight into like closed off rejection of like, nah, I don't need all that. Like, calm down. Like, being able to accept favor is another way of letting a blessing flow in. Like, but being able to accept favor when it makes no sense to you. Father God, as I continue through my life path, as I continue day in and day out trying to do the best I can with this life of mine, because life be lifing, I ask you that you show me the way to embrace the favor of others, that you show me the way to accept both the good, all the good, really, and not necessarily be so close off and expect ulterior motives. Yeah, yeah. As I continue to go through the day thinking over the readings of today's Exodus 1 and 3, or 1 through 3, can you please just work in my heart, work in my mind, work in my thoughts and in my spirit, Lord, and grant me any revelations that need to be granted, that need to be seen for this to be applicable to my life, Father God. As I continue down through the day, I hope that you wipe me of these germs that are trying to take me out. Yes, I thank you for waking me up through the day. I thank you for all the opportunities you have presented in front of me. I thank you for every time you give me a little internal chuckle because I see you at work. Like, I thank you for all of those moments that you have moved me in faith, that you have moved me and surrounded me and protected me, guided me, and for every coincidence that has occurred that I've seen in my life, I haven't fully thanked you for yet, that I haven't fully attributed to you yet. Thank you, because I know that those moments of coincidence were you working your little chessboard. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Join us for day 18. Hey. Till then, have a blessed day. Bye.